Do you have IBS and wondering if you can blame the bad gut bacteria? Chances are, if you do have IBS, you've at least thought about bad gut bacteria as a possible cause for your issues. On the other hand, you may have also heard that taking a probiotic or fermented food will help you. Which is it? And more importantly, how can you really know? My name's Dr. Taranella. In this video, we are going beyond basic health to help you understand the role of bad gut bacteria on IBS and your health in general. This is a big topic, so we're going to tackle some research and my experience on three specific things. We're going to look at the bacteria that are typically associated as troublemakers and why they are, the role of a healthy microbiome during exposure, and testing and understanding if this is affecting your IBS and gut. This video, like all my videos, are made to help you go beyond basic health, but it's not tailored specifically to you. So please read this disclaimer before we go on to the details of the video. This group of bacteria, when present, almost always causes problems. These are things like specific strains of E. coli, Salmonella, Shigella, Campylobacter, C. diff. You get the picture. But what is it with these bacteria that make them more problematic? So your gut microbiome is a very delicate ecosystem that's always ebbing and flowing in quantities of different microbes. The quantities and strength of the bacteria that enter into your digestive tract, either via food or water, really are going to matter how much of an impact it's going to make on your body and your digestive health. If you have a really strong, diverse microbiome that's really working together and communicating and helping one another, as well as having a good, healthy immune system, getting a small dose of some of these pathogenic microbes may not have a big impact in your overall health and your digestive health. The idea is that the good bacteria are displacing or, not allowing those pathogenic microbes to take hold as easily because they're a strongly knit group that are not just surviving, but they're thriving. This is one place where probiotics or fermented food or just having that really strong microbiome is really helpful because it's going to make it that much harder for those bad gut bacteria to take hold as easily and really do much damage in your intestines. Chances are these bad gut bacteria are going to cause problems though, and that's why we call them bad gut bacteria or pathogenic bacteria. They easily create pathology and problems in our digestive tract. Each one of them has a unique factor about them that makes them more virulent or more able to survive and thrive in hostile environments. That basically means they're going to cause more problems, cause more damage. So for instance, Campylobacter jejuni has a flagella for motility that allows it to invade and penetrate into the intestinal lining. Salmonella has mechanisms to survive within your own digestive cells and also resist any of the defenses coming on by your immune system, basically hijacking your cells and manipulating them to survive more easily. The bacteria Clostridium difficile possesses toxins that contribute to mucosal damage and inflammation, and it can also form a spore, allowing it to persist in the environment even when antibiotics are around. Certain E. coli strains can produce toxins like the Shiga toxin, which can increase the severity of the infection, and also certain adhesion factors that allow it to attach to the intestinal walls. So as you can see, the pathology or pathogenicity of these individual microbes often involves our ability to attack or adhere to our digestive cells, produce toxins, evade the immune response, and in some case, invade the actual tissues. And this gives them a competitive advantage over our own bacteria and allows them to damage the intestines and create inflammation. The more your body, via your immune system, struggles to get rid of these pathogenic bacteria, the more potential there is for inflammation and more damage inside the digestive tract. You can think of it like a war being fought in a city. Your digestive cells are like the buildings and structures that sustain collateral damage. This damage and lingering pathogenic microbes can lead to a protracted or prolonged recovery. Sometimes antibiotics are given for these types of infections, but they're not always needed. Believe it or not, our bodies can handle it. Even with antibiotics, these bugs can linger and their effects on our digestive tract can too. Let's look at a little research for some more context on these bad gut bacteria. So a study in the UK was tracking the amount of bad gut bacteria or pathogenic microbes that people get and found that Campylobacter accounted for 40,000 cases and Salmonella 30,000 cases. And these were all laboratory confirmed cases. There's certainly much more than that, maybe a quarter more or even 50% more that people don't even go and seek treatment or have testing done. Somewhere around a fifth or as much as 50% will turn into long-term IBS symptoms. And that is a pretty wide range, but different studies find different results in terms of long-term effects from these pathogenic microbes. One thing is for sure, the more pathogenic microbes that are there, the more likely you're going to have lasting symptoms and problems. For example, a small study of 38 patients looking at Salmonella enteritis reported that 12 still had bowel dysfunction a year after the acute infection, despite not being able to find the Salmonella present in the digestive tract. Additionally, persistent bowel dysfunction or problems is associated with deeper penetration of the organism into the digestive tract, into the cells, more severe damage to the mucosal cells, the digestive cells, and disruption of the nerves in the mucosal lining. It's interesting and notable that the female sex seems to be more likely to be influenced and develop ongoing symptoms in IBS after some infection with one of these bad gut bacteria. It's also worth noting that in general, most people that get infected with one of these microbes do not go on to have IBS or post-infectious IBS, but different studies report varying amounts of long-term IBS symptoms. So what is it about those that actually do end up with long-term symptoms or problems? So it definitely has to do with the virulence of that microbe, but as you may guess, it also has to do with your unique susceptibility, as we noted about the close-knit nature of your microbiome. You can think of it like this. Imagine you get infected with one of these bad gut bacteria, say Campylobacter or Salmonella, and getting an infection with one of these microbes is like planting a bunch of enemy fighters in a city that no one knows are there. So they're sort of hidden and they can go about and progress through the city, setting fire and bombing buildings like a wave of destruction, passing through and destroying everything in their trajectory. So the buildings are kind of like the digestive cells and the nearby bacteria. Those bad gut bacteria that are not recognized or discovered will go on to reproduce and give rise to offspring. And this allows them to invade other buildings and push further into the digestive tract and spread along the surface or go deeper into the digestive epithelial cells themselves. This is also pushing out the good bacteria as they spread as well. And as they push out those invaders, it's sort of creating a vacuum for other, sometimes dormant pathogenic bacteria that you don't necessarily want either. The destructive path and chaos that ensues from the infection, sometimes it's just the space itself, but it's also some of the things that they're producing creates a better environment for certain types of bacteria versus others. Of course, the enemy fighters aren't left alone forever to just destroy your whole digestive tract. Eventually, your immune system will kick in and start fighting back, but that battle with your immune system and these invading pathogenic microbes also creates damage and destruction. Those initial bad bacteria may linger and trigger more subtle but ongoing immune responses. So in that sense, it's kind of like a fire that never really goes completely out and just smolders there for weeks, months, or even years. Sometimes there's really nothing left to fight. All the microbes are actually gone, no pathogenic bacteria, but you're left with immune cells that are still fighting a ghost of the invading enemy. That ongoing immune response damages the intestine, specifically the proteins that hold the digestive cells together and allow them to open and close in between. And that immune activity can basically damage those proteins, leading to like an autoimmune type of reaction. That ongoing immune response can also damage the local nervous system called the enteric nervous system. And that damage to the nervous system is very much implicated in IBS symptoms symptoms after exposure to those bad gut bacteria. This process is referred to as post-infectious IBS. Most people don't recognize the connection between the infection and their now present IBS symptoms. This is partially because there's a delay of about 1 to 2 months between the initial severe symptoms and then the reemergence of the more subtle symptoms. So it's both the delay in the onset and also the change in severity or change in the types of symptoms that they're having that leave many people with post-infectious IBS going undiagnosed. That reemergence process or worsening of those symptoms with post-infectious IBS is thought to be from this damage to the local nervous system, the enteric nervous system, and the subsequent hyperreactivity or hyperactivity of the nervous system. Going back to our analogy, the city is on edge looking for enemies that may be or may not be there. Like fighting an imaginary ghost, the city occupants now respond differently to their environment. Some of the buildings remain damaged, others are rebuilt. There are some old neighbors and some new neighbors, but the city is changed. It's sensitized and more vulnerable than it was before. Symptoms like abdominal pain, changes in bowel habits, and discomfort can persist even after the dust settles from this invasion, and your gut, now sensitized, responds differently than it used to stress, food, and various stimuli from your environment. And that's from the mucosal damage, the microbial changes, and any changes on the nervous system itself. A good portion of patients with IBS do in fact have post-infectious IBS. It just has not been identified as such. This can be true even if the exposure was 6 months ago or 6 years ago. This was discovered, validated, and developed by Dr. Mark Pimentel. This test is known as the IBS SMART test, but many doctors don't actually know about it. And it's basically looking for evidence of the battle that was once fought. This evidence can still be found by way of antibody-based testing through a blood draw. And this is just one of many tests that can be really helpful in narrowing down your focus to find the most effective treatment. Of course, research on IBS is still ongoing, but current evidence suggests a strong link to bad gut bacteria and IBS. I found this testing and corresponding treatment to be very helpful for many of the patients in my practice, both in terms of symptom management and complete remission of all kinds of different digestive issues. While this is true, it's important to note that this is not always the case, and there are other possible angles and considerations to look at when you're having digestive issues. If you're captivated by this journey through looking at the intricacies of bad gut bacteria and post-infectious IBS, I have something that you may find very useful. My online course, Getting Past Post-Infectious IBS, is a great way to get a deeper understanding and practical strategies to reclaim your gut health. We go through all the different testing strategies and treatment options, and you can ask me questions directly on that platform. Check out the link in the description if you want more details. All right, that's all I had on this video about IBS and bad gut bacteria. If you do have questions about any of the content in this video, please drop it in the comment section. Happy to answer your questions.